Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's just dive right in, because today we're looking at something genuinely fascinating. We live in this era of absolute information overload, right? You probably check your phone dozens of times a day, scroll through infinite feeds of stressful news, and there's just this pervasive, underlying feeling of being perpetually behind. It is completely exhausting. But what if the cure to this very modern burnout is actually thousands of years old? Today, we're unpacking the profound intersection where ancient philosophy meets modern science. Specifically, we're exploring the psychology of Zen and how it really holds the secret to unlocking true inner peace. So if you've ever felt just totally overwhelmed by the world around you, the concepts we're about to look at could genuinely shift your entire perspective.
Have you ever met someone who stays perfectly calm when everything around them is literally falling apart? Think about that person for a second. Picture a high-stakes meeting where a project is failing, maybe a sudden crisis at home, or even just being stuck in terrible gridlock traffic when everyone is running super late. While everyone else in the room is caught in this absolute whirlwind of panic, heart rate spiking, voices raising, this one person remains completely peaceful. They're like a rock in the middle of a hurricane. It almost seems like magic, doesn't it? So what exactly is their secret? How do they avoid getting swept up in all that chaos?
Well, the core difference between panic and peace isn't actually about the external chaos happening around them. The ancient philosophy of Zen pointed this out millennia ago, and today, modern cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, proves it in a clinical setting. According to psychological research, our suffering doesn't come from the events themselves. Instead, it comes entirely from our cognitive appraisal of those events. Basically, it's the meaning and the weight we assign to what's happening. We actually construct our own stress. The peaceful person isn't experiencing a different reality, they're just processing it with an entirely different toolkit.
So let's look at Section 1, the secret of calm and changing your experience.
Which brings us right into Section 2, the weight of thoughts, and how holding on to problems actually hurts us. To truly understand how our minds actively create our own stress, I want you to imagine holding a standard glass of water in your outstretched hand. Just a simple, everyday glass of water. This glass represents the problems, the stressors, and the negative thoughts we face on a daily basis. It's that unread email from your boss, the looming deadline on your calendar, or maybe that awkward conversation you've been putting off.
Now, when you first pick up that glass of water, it's light. It doesn't take much effort at all to hold it out in front of you. When a problem first arises or a stressful thought first pops into your mind, your body might experience a quick spike of adrenaline, but it generally feels manageable, right? You hold the problem, you examine it, you figure out your next move, and your brain is fully capable of handling that short-term computational load. But think about what happens if you keep holding that exact same glass for hours without ever putting it down. It becomes agonizingly painful. Your arm's going to cramp, the muscles will fatigue, and eventually it'll just feel paralyzed. The absolute weight of the glass hasn't changed at all, but the longer you hold it, the incredibly heavier it feels. Your psychological problems work the exact same way. If you just hold on to them, prolonged stress hormones like cortisol flood your entire system. Thinking about your problems constantly doesn't magically solve them. It just wears down your cognitive function, exactly like that glass wears down the muscles in your arm.
Modern psychology actually has a very specific term for this phenomenon: rumination. Rumination is basically when your mind just keeps replaying the exact same thoughts over and over again. From a neurological standpoint, this often happens when the brain's default mode network gets stuck in this catastrophic loop. It's trying to problem solve, but it's failing, so it just ends up spinning its tires. The real danger here is that the more you replay these thoughts, the longer you hold that metaphorical glass of water, the more physically and mentally exhausted you become. You're fueling an endless, toxic cycle of anxiety.
So what's the solution? Zen teaches one incredibly simple yet profoundly difficult lesson: let go. You just put the glass down, and it is absolutely vital to understand the psychological liberation in this concept. You don't let go because your problems don't matter or because you're just ignoring reality. You let go because holding on to them 24 hours a day serves absolutely no functional purpose. It's all about neuroconservation. You literally have to put the weight down so your mind can recover and actually be strong enough to solve the problem tomorrow.
Moving on to Section 3, letting go through presence, focusing on the now.
Of course, simply saying, put the glass down, is way easier said than done. But when you really examine rumination, you realize it almost exclusively lives in yesterday and tomorrow. It's where we agonize over past mistakes that we literally cannot change, or we stress out about future hypotheticals that haven't even happened yet. Zen breaks this debilitating cycle by forcing an anchor to just now. Not yesterday, not tomorrow.
You reclaim your mental energy by forcing your brain to process only the absolute, grounding reality of the present moment.
And we can achieve that presence through a few immediate, actionable steps. First, just notice your breathing. Actually feel the physical sensation of air moving in and out of your lungs. Second, notice the sounds around you. Ground your nervous system in your immediate physical environment. And third, and this is a massive one in mindfulness practices, notice your thoughts, but do not fight them. I want you to imagine your anxious thoughts as clouds passing in the sky, or cars driving by on a busy highway. You can acknowledge they're there, but you definitely don't have to jump into traffic with them. You just let them pass.
That brings us to Section 4, the power of acceptance. Seeing reality clearly.
You know, the word acceptance often gets a pretty bad reputation. People mistakenly equate it with giving up or just letting yourself be a helpless victim of circumstance. But true acceptance is something entirely different. In modern therapies like dialectical behavior therapy, there's this concept called radical acceptance. It highlights that people waste staggering, enormous amounts of energy just wishing their reality was something else. Radical acceptance means dropping the resistance to reality. You stop fighting the fact that something bad has happened, which then saves all of your cognitive energy for actual problem solving.
Acceptance is actually a highly active, highly efficient procedure. Imagine you're driving to an important interview and you get a flat tire. Step 1. See reality clearly. Okay, the tire is flat. Step 2. Decide what to do next. You can call a tow truck or you can change it yourself. Step 3. Act wisely. Notice what's totally missing here. You haven't wasted a single ounce of energy screaming at the steering wheel, cursing your luck, or wishing the tire wasn't flat. This simple shift is exactly what allows peaceful people to navigate crises so effectively.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, choosing your reaction, mastering yourself.
So, we've talked about putting the glass down through presence and seeing reality clearly through acceptance. This all builds to one primary reason peaceful people seem so incredibly powerful. They do not react to everything. They intentionally choose their response. The famous psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl summarized this brilliantly. He basically said, between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. Psychology shows us that living in that space brings massive benefits. You make better decisions, you build significantly stronger relationships, and you experience vastly less stress.
The ultimate empowering takeaway of this entire explainer is really this. You cannot control every situation. Bad things are going to happen, traffic will gridlock, systems will fail, and the world will remain wildly unpredictable. You literally cannot force the external world to behave, but you can always control your reaction, and honestly, sometimes mastering your internal response is the greatest and only power you truly need. True strength comes from mastering yourself.
So, the next time life becomes overwhelming and the chaos starts swirling around you, I want you to resist the urge to ask, how do I escape this? Instead, replace that instinct with a single life-changing question, how can I face this with a peaceful mind? Take that question with you today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it helps you navigate whatever comes your way with a little more